Hey everybody, welcome to the podcast. My name is Chris.
My name is Imari.
And it's 2024. I think that we all know the world could be a better place. And I also think that we all have a collective choice to make that so. Overall, that's a little absurd. But this show is called This is Absurd. And it's all about talking about absurd problems that need absurd solutions. And we hope to meet people who are doing just that.
Correct. Accurate. People who see where we are on the timeline of being human, and they're like, not good enough. And they come up with ingenious innovations, wonderful breakthroughs in technology, or just cool ideas that take us to where we could be. And here we are, just documenting the process along the way.
Let's make it happen.
Come on in.
Hey everybody, I'm here with my friend Imari.
What's up?
He's our guest on the episode today, and it's a privilege to talk with Imari. And I hope we have fun. I hope we, help viewers and listeners think deeper, more critically about their lives, and hopefully they like what we have to say some of the time, and then they take, the good stuff into their life with them.
Yeah. Just for future reference and any disclaimers, everything I say will be good stuff, so feel free to just take everything.
So, Imari, what's your profession? How do you describe it to people?
Oh, starting off with the hardest question I could possibly answer. I guess technically, if you were to read my resume, it would say life coach. It would say keynote speaker. So I think less about what I do specifically and more about like what is the impact that what I do has. And my job is to say things that change people's lives. The whole thing I'm trying to do is communicate my thoughts in a way that when ingested and when heard, make people live lives that feel more meaningful.
Can you paint for me what direction you want to take them? Or like, that's kind of broad what you said, like inspire them, but why do they need inspiration, or what inspiration are you trying to give? Yeah.
Am I allowed to make movie references?
Yeah.
You're allowed to do anything. I speak in cinematic metaphor. Don't tell me I can do anything.
That probably works for most people because movies are pretty popular things.
So there's a wonderful, fantastic movie made by the name of The Matrix. You may have heard of it. And if you haven't, we shouldn't be friends. And there's a moment in The Matrix where I think it's Morpheus. He's talking to Neo, and he's talking about Neo doesn't know that the Matrix is a thing yet, right? He just lives in it. But Morpheus is like, there's this thing inside you, this feeling that something is off, something you've known your entire life, but you can't really put your fingers on it. You feel it when you pay your taxes, when you take the little lady across the street. Something feels not right. Yeah. And I give that context because I think everybody would know and associate and relate to that feeling when I say a lot of folks know the feeling of living a life that is not theirs. When they wake up and they do what they're expected or what they're told, whether it's go work at this job or go be this partner or go raise these kids, and they get the sense that like something doesn't feel fully alive, right? It's like having a muscle that you can feel, but you're not training, right? And it feels like you can't ignore it. And especially the more that you get reflected back to you, or the more that you see people doing or living the life that you desire, is the more that you're aware that that muscle is there, that there is that tick that is inside your mind. So I believe what my job as a coach and speaker is to point out, hey, that feeling that you feel, listen to it. It is important. It is trying to tell you that you have one shot at this life thing, and you can get to the end and waste it, or you can seize it and you can make adjustments and you can change character and you can change actions to make sure that feeling gets quieter and quieter. And the feeling of I am the director of my life and I am playing this video game as best as I can, that feeling gets turned up louder and louder.
Yeah, that's really good stuff. It's just, yeah.
What does that make you feel?
How does it make me feel?
Yeah.
Oh, fuck. I don't know. Okay. Let's get back on track. No, that's all really good stuff. I mean, maybe what happened in my brain was I want to ask Imari a question, but maybe it's too hard for both of us.
Don't underestimate my ability to fabricate bullshit.
Or maybe oh, bullshit. So much so much is tied to the man I referred to earlier, John Vervaeke, and how we hope to have him as a guest. He has such a holistic philosophy that I've been watching unfold. Like, you can't really go to any podcast or talk to any person without like, oh, that's what he's talking about, and like referential. He's just talking about like life philosophy, like life. Yes. So you can't like escape his encompassing kind of philosophy.
Makes him sound like an overlord.
Yeah.
You cannot escape.
That's the nature of it, I guess. Hopefully he doesn't lead a cult one day, and then I guess you're out of the show. That might be. We'll do it with like safety measures.
Okay.
If you're a cult leader, you could come if you're a cult leader. We'll just have like safety measures.
Yeah.
Back to Imari. I'm sorry. The question that I was scared to ask you was that muscle that you're referring to, because that's just a facsimile of something you're referring to. Where is it, or what is it, or how do you know it's there?
Like I said, don't underestimate my capacity to bullshit.
I need to ask the question because
I think
just because I can't imagine an answer doesn't mean that you have one. And
I think it's an amazing question. It sounds like you're asking multiple questions, like where is it and where does it come from? I think those are separate. So if I'm going to be like, where is it localized in the brain? I don't fucking know because I'm not a neurosurgeon, right? But I do think that, like, you know, you can identify something by its effects, I believe. So, for example, like a lot of people, unfortunately, have the experience of being in a relationship and knowing that this is not their one, right? There's like a knowingness. And I think that knowingness is adjacent to, related to this knowingness when you know you're not living the life that you could be, or I don't want to say should be, because that suggests that there's some author that exists that wrote the Chris Lukides script, right? But I do think that there's a part of us as human beings that it's so innate and it's so intuitive. It's like when you were born, you knew that you needed to be fed, right? Like you didn't intellectualize, I need my proper amount of carbohydrates today in order to function and babble, right? Your body was like, put something in me. Like, I need this, right?
Yeah,
before you're even able to intellectualize. And I think that the same way there is this part in you that is like, I need to be expressed. I need to fully know that I was here. Yeah. And I can only project from my own experience. I know that voice in me. I'm very acquainted with that voice. And when I do not listen to that voice, at first it's just like a mental kerfuffle, right? And then it's a little bit of anxiety. And then it's like actual tension in my body. And then it builds into resentment. And then and then I become somebody I don't want to become, right? So the sooner I listen to that voice is the sooner I quell and circumvent that discomfort.
Is what you're talking about, is that authenticity? Would you give it that word?
I think so. I'm not a big fan of that word because it's so motivational postery. But like, I do think it's, for lack of a better term,
it's like close to the thing you're pointing at.
Yeah. I think it's like, we as a species, an animal species, experience genetic diversity, right? As far as I can tell, which means that some people have, certain different muscular skeletal definition in their legs, which means that some people can jump higher than other people. So go jump, and you pretending to not be able to jump, or you only jumping halfway because that's what everybody else does. there's a part of you that knows I am not doing what I was built to do. And at best, if I continue to not do it, I will just wither. And I will eventually just turn into a Smeagol-esque version of myself.
Yeah. I like the best part was, I mean, it's a metaphor for anything that's physical or mental, to not hold back.
Yeah.
That part resonated with me.
Mm-hmm.
It's beauty. It's pretty.
Mm-hmm.
It's like that concept is beautiful, and to me, because I have maybe a naive concept of like everyone does have something they're good at, or some purpose, or some thing they could do, and I believe that.
Is that a hope or a belief?
Both, I think.
And if it's a belief, where's your proof?
I think that I am aware that you could argue for anything. Like, that's what like, you could argue for anything. Yes. So
this is the fabricated bullshit I was talking about.
No, but because you could argue for anything doesn't mean that anything is true. Like,
great point.
Like,
yeah.
It's all relative and perspective and like structural. Like, I don't know. I could try and think of a thing on the fly, but I even think of like mentally challenged people, or like people who have handicaps or something. That doesn't mean they don't have value, and like they still have value, and they could find something that like sparks their joy. And if there's joy sparked, then it's going to spark other people's joy who's receptive to that. So it's like they could have a job at the like little league game or something, and like, people fucking love that person. So it's like,
yeah.
That is a thing they could be good at.
Do you think
like their capability is kind of irrelevant?
Yeah. Do you think that the pursuit of joy is important as a human being?
Yes, I do.
Why? You didn't know this was an interview of you, did you?
Yeah.
Turn the cameras around.
Joy. Well, fuck. I'm just gonna regurgitate something I just heard recently and try and like remember it. I heard on a podcast that joy is you realizing something is good, and like for all the metaphysical senses of those words, realization and good.
Yeah, that's great. Okay, you should have just said that you came up with it yourself. I would have been like, wow, this guy's a genius. That was amazing. The realization that something is good. That's great.
And then like the emotion that you feel because of that realization, and that the goodness is there to be realized.
Can I play with something? Because I know we're in the existential human.
Okay, we're only on question 1.
Yeah. So there's this thing called hedonic adaptation, which is the idea that like, okay, the first time you do something is always going to be the best time, because it's like, oh wow, this is great. The realization that something is good, right? And maybe that's why something doesn't bring you as much joy the second time, because it's like it's not a realization anymore. It's like it's a remembrance that something is good, but it's not a realization. Like the idea that was. Are we recording? That was a great thought.
Which part you ruined it?
The realization of good versus the remembrance of good. So I think that like for example, the first time I ever edited a video, because I was an editor before I was a filmmaker before I got into coaching. The first time I edited, I was like, whoa! I was like, I am controlling reality. It was amazing. And it was the first time that time didn't exist for me as a kid, where I was like, I'm doing a school project, yes, but I'm not counting the clock, right? Which is what I was doing every other time. Shout out to all those terrible teachers, right? And that was the realization of something good. But the second time you do it, it doesn't bring as much joy. And the 85th time, maybe not as much. Maybe there's little spikes, but not like the first time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but there is something to be said for the remembrance of good. So I think a cool question is for people, what have you forgotten is good?
Let me think about that.
Yeah.
What have you forgotten that's good? You're saying that that's kind of a message that you like to share?
I just came up with that like 7 seconds ago. I just think it's a cool concept, right? Like if I ask somebody, what have you forgotten is good, it's like, oh, I forgot how good it is to play the piano because I've been working in my fucking tax job for 86 years. I don't know why somebody works for 86 years, but you get the point.
Different planet, maybe.
Yeah, but it's great joke. But I have forgotten that what's good is expressing myself. What I've forgotten is good is cooking. What have I forgotten? For me, for example, last week I was in Joshua Tree and I just took 5 days off and I just went by myself, didn't answer anybody's texts, didn't support. I mean, I supported some clients, but like I just went off by myself and I had forgotten how good it was to just be by myself, completely by myself.
We'll probably come back to joy.
Okay.
And goodness.
Cool. Can't wait.
So through hearing you speak and things, it sounds like you're telling people that you can make your own meaning because there's no inherent meaning in the universe. And
yeah, because if there was inherent meaning, how would I know? Unless I
so
got like a text from God.
Yeah. So from that starting point, how do you think people should make meaning?
That's a great question. How should I make meaning? Something I'm working on in my life right now is moving less away from my intellectual and moving more into my intuitive. I've just been over-indexed in my capacity to philosophize and think about things. And I believe that the answer is in the intuitive. Like, you do know the things that mean something to you. You do know the things that move you, right? You might pretend like you don't. You might forget because you haven't done it for a while. But I do think that there is an element of, if you're presented with an apple and orange, if you paused enough and got out of your head enough, you would know, my body wants an apple right now. My body wants an orange right now, right? And I think it's just taking the pause, to be honest, before you get into the obfuscation of expectation and like other people's meaning. I think a lot of us are caught up in other people's meaning. Yeah, which is a terrible concept.
Are there any building blocks that you give people to find meaning, like process? Or
yeah, like,
is there a brief form of that, or do you want to go deep on that? Or
we can go as deep as you want. Pause. It's like,
how do you coach people to find the meaning?
First of all, asking. It's so funny. It's like we ask ourselves, well, where does meaning come from? What is meaning? Yada, yada. But if I ask somebody, hey, what were the most meaningful moments in your life? People know the answer to that, right? If I ask you what you had for breakfast this morning, I'd be like, was that meaningful? You'd be like, no, because it wasn't, right? But I could ask you, oh, what was more meaningful, the birth of this kid or graduating from college, right? And most people are like, I know the answer to here. I know the answer here. So the question is, if you do know intuitively the answer of the things that are most meaningful to you, what does meaningfulness mean? It means, what made my life worth it, right? I mean, we can just fucking get right to the meat of it. Life is fucking suffering, dude. I've never met somebody who was never in pain in their entire life. And I've met billionaires. I've met royalty. Everybody has experienced fucking pain, which would suggest, after billions of fucking experiments, that pain is inherent to the human experience, right? So if pain is inherent to the human experience, and me having been through a significant amount of pain, especially in my like upbringing, the question is, what would the story you tell, and what is the story you would make that would make the pain worth it, right? So like, oh, like, you know, for example, I would like, lately I've been like, am I ever gonna find my wife? There's no good women out here, right? And it's like a struggle to like go on these fucking dates and to be like, oh my God, this girl's a waste of my time. I don't like this girl. Oh my God, this girl is stressing me out. Blah, 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 blah. Pain, suffering, until you find somebody you're like, oh my God, you are worth having to go through these things, right? That makes it a meaningful relationship, right? So the question is, if the human experience is inherent and attached to, intrinsically to pain, What is the story? What is the thing that you could do? What is the thing that you would achieve, you would make, you would create, you would undo that would make that pain worth it, right? It's like, yeah, you can go to the gym and you can lift weights and break your fucking bicep. And if you don't, after 10 years, see any difference in your bicep, it's not worth it. It's like, this just hurts. I don't want to hurt anymore, right? But if it's like, okay, cool, yeah, this going to the gym, it hurts and it's painful and I don't want to wake up at 6 a.m. and I don't want to do this. But, oh man, I feel stronger. Oh man, I'm able to pick up things. I'm more proud of how I look. Oh, my girlfriend was like rubbing my biceps. It's like, and she's like, oh, this is so nice. Like, yeah, that made it worth it, right? So the question is, what can you do that would make the inherent suffering of life worth it?
Mm-hmm. So it sounds like you help people find their values, essentially.
Mm-hmm, exactly.
Because worth it means nothing unless you're kind of putting a metric or unit on that.
Yeah.
Or definition.
Worth implies value.
Yeah. And do your values change as you go through life?
That's a good question. As somebody who is under the age of 100, I can only assume what my process is going to be like. But after having lived a couple of decades on the planet, I would say I see a consistent pattern of values. Mm-hmm. Maybe over time, little new ones pop up every once in a while, but like freedom has always been important to me. And I think it's because I have, to an extreme degree, experienced what it's like when my freedom is taken away. So I'm like, oh, okay, I value this very much, right? And maybe somebody wouldn't value freedom as much as me because they haven't discovered its worth, right? Like, you don't really value your house until it burns down.
Would you share any other values you have? Freedom is a really good one.
Freedom, passion, like passion / inspiration, I feel like are pretty similar. I was like telling my business partner the other day, I'm like, hey man, we can strategize and we can like make money on things, but if I don't feel inspired, I don't want to fucking do it. And don't make me do it. I refuse. And I actually think that if I were to do all these things and become very successful at them and I was not inspired, that would be equivalent to death.
Freedom, passion, anything else worth mentioning?
Freedom, passion, honesty. Yeah, I value honesty.
Was it hard to find those values? Did it take time?
If I would surmise that if one has the tools, it doesn't take that long to find the values. I think that without the tools or without the taking the time to figure that, I think you can just wander through life kind of like, I don't know what I care about. Like, hire a coach.
Mm-hmm. Do you think that the body or the intuitive side is a better way to find those values?
I think whatever tool you use to find your values, having a connection to your body and your intuition is going to help that tool be effective.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Can you explain that more?
Yeah. It's like if I, back to that apple and orange thing, if I had an apple and orange in front of Chris right now, right? The tool would be like, okay, Chris, here's an apple, here's an orange, and next to those fruits, you'll see a piece of paper that tells you the nutritional facts. There's 87 calories in the apple, and the orange comes from Florida, and it's like, that's a great tool. Thank you for the information. And I'm like, cool. Now, when you look at the orange, and you imagine yourself eating the orange, how do you feel? When you look at the apple, and you imagine yourself eating it, chewing it, and the sound of the apple, how does that feel? Which one of those felt better? The apple. Great. Eat the fucking apple.
What comes up for me in that is that all makes a ton of sense. What comes up for me is you've had to taste an orange and an apple before for you to imagine you eating it. So that kind of speaks like you need a life to have happened a little bit before you get a life coach.
Oh wow, it's like so it's like somebody like comes up to me like, hey man, I want to work with you. I'm like, get a life first. That's funny.
Like, yeah, 2-year-old's not ready, but
yeah, I think it's hard for a 2-year-old to be like, my values are.
I guess everyone's on a different pace of journey, so But is there a time where you think it's best to maybe think about this deeper?
Yeah, especially great question, dude. I think that the best time to acquire understanding of your values is right at or before the time when most people are making long-term decisions of what they're doing with their life. They're deciding, who am I going to marry? They're deciding, how am I going to spend my time? Like, what am I going to work on? Am I going to have kids? Like, I highly suggest to find those things out before you make any life-altering commitments.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Isn't it absurd that there's no like stop sign in life at like 17, 18 or whenever
100%.
that says like, hey,
Before you
pull
proceed.
over please and like check out where you're going? Isn't that absurd?
I 100% think that's absurd. 100%. If we're getting to the meat of the
Yeah.
the irony of the episode, I think, me going to college, it's like I learned a lot about myself in college. I would say maybe accidentally. Sounds weird. It sounds like I had some very sketchy experiences. Not really. But it's interesting because in order to get into college, I had to decide what I was going to study as a major, right? And it's like, I was kind of like, film? Question mark? Like, here, right? But unless you have a pretty significant amount of willpower and wherewithal, like, a lot of people are like, okay, cool, this is the major I study in college, so that's going to be the first internship I get. Okay, after the first internship, I guess this takes me to this career. Okay, once I get this career, this promotion makes sense. And it's all of a sudden, now you're 50, 60 years old, living off of a decision that you made when you were 17, 18 without any self-awareness. It's like, that, I don't understand how somebody could think about that and not be scared.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Do you have any ideas how at a societal level we could like do better there? Like it could be in curriculum or something. Like what do you think?
I hear you with the curriculum thing, because that's kind of how we like make a methodology out of
Well, we
the
can't
learning
just
progress.
like call the fairy godmother to like give them a
Tell me who I am.
when they have a wet dream. Do the meaning of life dream too.
Yeah. I mean, actually, this is fun, man. Thanks. It's like the metaphorical, allegorical representation of this is like Hogwarts, when it's like, before you come here, put this hat on.
Yeah.
Let's put this hat on. Like, and the hat is like, you wanted to be in Gryffindor? This is you a Hufflepuff ass motherfucker. Slow down,
I never
buddy.
thought of that scene so deeply.
Yeah. I mean, it's to your point of like, oh, could we make curriculum out of this? I do think that there's an opportunity for high schoolers to have more like life skills curriculum. I think that could be cool. And as somebody who teaches this and does this for a living, I do think that there's something to be said for like, it's the life experiences that give you your values, right? Like, it's going to be very hard to be in a textbook without any life experience to be like, oh yeah, freedom, that I like that. Great concept. It's like, I don't know about all that.
Yeah.
So I think that and I don't think this is that far of a stretch, but like, if we just instituted more rites of passage in a way as a society, right around that 17, 18 age, where it's like, what if like this is absurd, but here we go. You should have everybody say that once in an episode. This is absurd, but it's like, what if at 17, every child in America just had to go on this like preordained like journey, this test of wills, this like adventure, like go in the forest, and in the forest, you have X number of food, and or there's this trap door, or like go figure it out. And just like, when you come back, you'll have a real name, but until then you're Brian. But when you come back, you'll be, I don't know, Morpheus.
Yeah, I like that idea a lot. And I everything's absurd.
Is it?
We're monkeys on a rock hurling
Fair.
through space.
Yes.
Pretty absurd.
Yes.
We're going to take the time to like make states across the country back like hundreds of years ago. And we need that schoolhouse. You guys better make that thing. And now here we are, like completely dominating the world or whatever as a race. But I like that idea. It's like very native Aboriginal kind of rites of passage, thinking that is probably what we're closer to evolutionarily.
Yeah, it's like
anything today.
They probably came up with that idea for a reason, right? It's like I don't know. They didn't have podcasts in the teepee. Two guys probably got around together and they were like, "We should fuck these kids up a little bit."
Yeah, there's probably some real truth to that rites of passage kind of thing. But yeah, I was thinking like, here's another absurd idea, which is like, what if every school kid got a personal counselor that was funded by the school? Like, there's nothing absurd about that if you were to compare it to anything else.
The price of it is absurd, but yeah.
Well, I mean, that's like, why is that a bad idea or wrong?
I don't think it's a bad idea. I think that's probably a cool question that you'll ask on the show a lot, is like, you'll come up with a lot of cool ideas, but then the next question is the feasibility of the ideas. Yeah. And that doesn't necessarily mean don't come up with like off the cuff ideas, but
it comes to values, like
yeah, I think so.
The cost doesn't matter if it's valuable, kind of.
Yeah. Because it's like I don't know when this happened, but at some point people were like, we should get the kids to school. They shouldn't have to walk 7 miles in the snow. So some guy was like, let's put them in big yellow things, buses. Yeah. And some guy was like, that's going to be too expensive. How are we going to do that for millions of kids? And then they found a way, because they're like, it's important that these kids don't get eaten by wolf on the way to school. So I have a value, and based on your values, you can now make different decisions. So I think it's a great rebuttal, is like, regardless of how much it costs, it's just a question of how much do we value it. So great point.
Those kids were losing toes to frostbite.
Yeah.
But we're like losing people's lives to just like pointlessness. Mm-hmm. So
yeah, I mean, to make it real for a second, it's like, how many people have killed themselves who could have done amazing, great things? How many people have killed themselves who could have loved somebody deeply on the planet?
Yeah, I could see psychologically that someone who would kill themselves has like a side to them that could really shake things up. And if they channeled it differently, or if like a random act in their life was different, they'd be alive and like utilizing something that was lost.
Can I play with that a little bit?
If you want to.
I think that, yeah, you could say if a different event, activity happened, then maybe this person would... Or series of events. I would say... /and if a different interpretation of an event happened, then we wouldn't be in the situation that we're in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I think that's the thing you always have control over. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Because you could say, just to get real, it's like, as somebody who's been suicidal before, this happened. This is what it means. For example, my mom abused me. She hurt me. She kicked me out of the house. That means I am somebody who's not worth loving. And very quickly, you go from, I'm not somebody worth loving, to, I shouldn't exist. Hence, how we went from an interpretation and a meaning to a potential life-ending decision. Yeah. Right? Versus, my mom hurt me. She sent me out of the house, etc., etc. Well, man, my mom must have gone through a really challenging childhood, or troubling interpretations, or made very different meanings in her life that would have allowed her to make these kind of decisions. And these things aren't necessarily a representation of what they mean about me, which would then give me a lot more opportunity than the belief and the meaning of, well, I suck and I don't deserve to live.
Yeah. Absolutely. You covered things I was wondering about just kind of through the course of that. I was going to ask you, let's touch on an idea that you are aware of just by the way that you answered my last question. The interpretation of events. You're affected by like others' interpretations that you never have contact with.
Mm-hmm.
In the case of like your mother, like you never had a say in her interpretations when she was young. You never had a say in her parents' interpretations.
Yeah. Yeah.
So these interpretations have a huge impact down the way.
Yeah. 100%.
What does that mean? Or how does that, what does that make you feel or think?
Thanks for that. I think that, wow, that's a fucking cool question. I think that it offers us the opportunity to ask ourselves, events will happen in every single person's life unless something goes terribly wrong, right? Everybody will have an event at some point. And the first question is, how can I interpret this event in a way that serves me? Like in a way that I don't have to needlessly suffer? Yeah. The second, next level is like, how can I interpret this event in a way that serves everyone? Right? And it's like, that makes us all better. Right? Because that's a whole different ballgame to be thinking on that level. Because that's, I mean, how close of a definition can you get to like selflessness? It's like, I'm going to interpret reality in a way that serves everybody. Right?
Yeah.
So for example, to make it very concrete for people, it's like a white person cuts me off in traffic, or a white person does something that humans do to other humans, right? I could interpret it and be like, man, white people suck. Man, white people are racist. That person did that thing to me because I am black. It's like, okay, that doesn't serve me, because then that cuts me off from an entire fucking race of people that I could connect, collaborate, and deepen my human experience with. And it also creates a reality in which other people hear me say that, other people watch me interact in that way, and then that affects what they do, and that creates more division. So does me interpreting Bob cutting me off in the grocery store line as he's a racist actually proliferate outside of my own experience into a way that makes everybody suffer, and that makes, like, I'm just perpetuating shit-sucking division, viral meaning making in a way that is, no pun intended, like a sickness, like virally debilitating? Fun questions.
Yeah. There's power in interpretation.
I think all the power is in the interpretation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the power I'm referring to is the ability to U-turn interpretation, like at the blink of an eye.
Yeah, yeah.
When you think like in the context of a social network, kind of, or like multiple people.
When was the last time you changed your mind about something?
That's a really weird question.
I thought you were going to say never.
I don't know the answer. I kind of like, I'm a really middle of the road person where it's like, I didn't set my mind on that yet, so it's not really set to change. Whatever.
Yeah, like it's too neutral to be changed. But because you exist as a human being, I'm sure you have some beliefs. You have some stances.
Tomatoes are good now. When
really?
They weren't.
I haven't hit that enlightenment point yet.
I mean, with stuff.
Huh?
With other stuff, tomatoes are good.
Oh yeah, like not by itself. You're not like like an apple.
Yeah. Whatever. Man, we got off on a tangent. I had some interesting ideas, but my brain doesn't hold on to them so well. Let's see. I want to hear how you found meaning like, I want to hear enough about your trauma or experiences in life that paint a picture for what turned you around. Like, I know a little bit about your story, but I want to learn more. And it's like, you had to go to like military school and stuff, and like, there's really challenging things.
Mm-hmm.
And now you're here today. So like, where did you turn up on the like improvement scale?
You say I'm here today as if I'm like a model of human excellence. Just like, doesn't get better than this. I mean, some would say.
Relative to a lot of things.
Yeah, relative to where I was. Yeah. So the question is, what did I need to make meaning out of?
Not exactly. I think it's the question is more of like, tell us a story of yourself.
Mm-hmm.
What challenges did you face, and how did you turn that into something that serves yourself, as you said?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So in the like, as real life examples, and not just like the ideas,
Not concept. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So I know we referenced the mom trauma a couple times, but I talk about it so much, so I'm going to take a different route.
For sure.
We can come back to it later if you want. I'm not opposed, but just to keep things interesting. So before I got into the work that I do now, I was a filmmaker, which you know. Yeah, I directed films. Directed music videos, directed commercials, directed social videos, whatever. And the height of my career was directing videos for this company called Jubilee. All right, they've got millions of subscribers. They're pretty well known, et cetera, et cetera. And I don't share this story to disparage them, but just to share an honest story about what life was and what happened. So I was directing their videos. I was their first like official lead director. And I made a couple series for them. A couple of them went viral. One of them went and continues to go mega viral. And it's a series called Middle Ground, right? It's a series in which you bring together two opposing groups of people, Christians, atheists, black, white, defund the police, whatever, the opposite of that,
Yeah,
pro-police, whatever, yeah. And you run them through a social experiment, and it creates empathy and connection and dialogue and things that I care about and that I think are quintessential for the human experience. And I made that show. It was just an idea, and it went viral. And it's, literally hundreds of millions of people have seen the show by now. Yeah. And I remember in its earlier days, right after I left Jubilee, Middle Ground, the series, got nominated for a Streamy. And a Streamy is an award. It's like basically the Oscars for internet content, right? Oscars is like Netflix and, whatever. Streamies is like stuff that goes on YouTube, the best of the best. This is what gets nominated, right? And so it was a pretty big deal, pretty big honor. And like I said, I wasn't working at Jubilee at the time when it got nominated. And I found out on the internet somehow that this thing
directed it.
that I directed, yeah, and that I conceptualized and created, whatever. This is going to sound braggadocious, but I mean it to communicate the point rather than to boost my ego. It's like it's as if Steven Spielberg did Titanic, right? James Cameron, sorry. It's as if James Cameron made Titanic, right? Mm-hmm. And then whoever the parent company was that owned it was like, all right, we don't like you. We're not going to like associate this with you anymore. And then like there was the Oscars the next year. And he like found out in like the newspaper, like, oh, Titanic is nominated for an Oscar. Yeah. That's the idea, right? Okay. And so I was nominated or Middle Ground was nominated for this thing. I found out online, and I wasn't invited to the ceremony. It was like in Beverly Hills. It was like a big red carpet affair, whatever, right? And I wasn't nominated. And
you weren't invited.
I wasn't invited. Thank you. And I just whether it's right or wrong. I'm not a very angry person. I don't really get angry that often. I'm working on it. I'm trying to be more angry. I'm mad. But that day I was fucking like,
Yeah.
I scorched earth, and I felt what true red hot pain and anger is. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I'm sitting at home watching on a screen this thing that I created and I put my heart and soul into get nominated for this huge award, and nobody knows that it's even like remotely associated with me. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I was angry. And also, you know, like there's like the financial component of like, I wasn't making any money off of it. They were making money off of it and that
Gotcha.
kind of thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll make a point, I promise. And so, I was livid that day, and I called the CEO the next day and I let him know how I felt about that experience. And that showed me my values. Again, difficult experience, reflecting to you what is important to you. And the value is that like creators, artists, creative people like deserve to be appreciated and they deserve to be respected. And if you don't respect and appreciate creative people, everybody will fucking suffer. Everybody will. Because if artists are not arting, if creators are not creating, give it 2 years and this shit, this human thing that's already kind of absurd is going to move from this is absurd to this fucking sucks. None of us want to be here. All of us are like, there's no art in the world. There's no beauty in the world. There's no creativity in the world. Get me the fuck out of here. Because now it's just hunting and struggle. That's it. So take care of fucking artists. Take care of them. We need them. They are important. Nurture them, support them, acknowledge them, and appreciate them. And I took that impetus and that feeling and I started talking about how I feel about taking care of artists. And I like, you know, I started doing like smaller speaking gigs where I would be like, yo, take care of artists, creative companies, nurture your best resource, which is the inspiration of these people. One of my first speaking gigs was in Germany. I like went and I gave a talk about how can you nurture the creative spirit and take care of the human that houses it. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And so I turned struggle, difficulty, pain into something meaningful. Because if that had just happened to me and I did nothing with it, then it was just suffering. Then it was just anger. Then it was just being fucked over. And that is not worth it.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
That is my story.
Yeah, thanks, Imari. That's what I hope the show could do. Like I go through life and then this is something I'm trying to like redirect the stress or pain of life to like reflect it and propel out in a like a prism of goodwill back to the world. And that's what you did. So I hope we could do that together.
Yeah. It's the man who breaks his leg in his horse and carriage is going to be the man who is the most motivated to build a fucking car. He's like, I'm tired of this. Not again. 7th time this fucking week. I need to figure out how motors work. So yeah, suffering is inherent, but like, use it.
Yeah.
Get value out of it.
Yeah. That's might be what makes humans humans, is that ability to interpret things in new ways and then make lemonade out of lemons in like the biggest ways.
Yeah. It's wow, cool. Fucking that's why I love you, man. I love you for many reasons, but this is one of the reasons. Like, think about it. What differentiates us from mammals or other human or other animals? A squirrel can really only make like a negative interpretation of a negative event, right? A squirrel isn't like, the tree fell, but I will become the best squirrel and I will plant the most trees and I will, right? Like, he doesn't do that. He's just like, fuck, my tree is gone. I can't trust the wind or whatever it is.
Yeah.
I think that humans inherently have the capacity to make a negative event dope and have a positive result out of it. And if that is the one of the only things that makes us a human being, let's use that. Like,
Mm-hmm.
let's do that because we can.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe that's what we're supposed to do, right? You were given a pancreas, you were given a kidney, you were given a tongue. Those things have purposes. You were given the ability to turn a shitty situation into something amazing. Use that. Otherwise, you will suffer and you will struggle. And I would not be surprised if you eventually want to kill yourself.
Mm-hmm. We've gone off script a bunch, so
Have we?
I'm trying to figure out what to do next. And I'm not talking into the microphone because I like slouching to it.
It's okay, man.
Episode 1, here we are.
Thanks for this, man. I'm enjoying this.
Yeah, thank you. I am too. I want to ask a question more about the mom or military school trauma
Yeah, sure.
segment of
Okay.
your life. Whatever word, plug-in word there. But first, maybe just tell us what happened. You had to go to military school,
Mhm.
and how did that feel?
Mm.
And then I'll have another question.
Yeah. So just so we're clear, me being sent to military school was not the worst or only negative experience that I experienced as a child. I just bring up military school because it's easy to reference as a reference point for a lot of people,
Totally.
because I know it's something that not most people have experienced. So we can talk about it as an isolated incident. So being sent to military school, how did that feel? That felt like nobody cares about me. And I am not worth caring about.
Yeah. Maybe tell us, like, how they surprised, like, you were surprised and it was just like out of
Yeah.
left field. Just
Yeah.
what happened? Like,
Yeah.
outside of the feelings, like, what happened?
Yeah. So I was a seventh grade Imari, and I was in public school, and it was halfway through seventh grade year. Yeah.
Mhm.
So it was January.
Cool.
And I had every intentions and expectations that next week I will still be a seventh grader in public school. And that is how life works, that it will continue as the way it has been expected to. However, on one night, Sunday night, I believe it was, my mom just called me into her room, and keeping in mind that we have never had a loving relationship, informed me that she had made the decision to send me to military school, and that would be starting in a couple hours, because in a couple hours I would need to pack my bags and leave the house, and I would be starting over in military school. And I had no choice. There was nothing to say. There was nothing to defend myself. There was nobody there to vouch for my another case, right? And it was like, hey, this relationship, which is meant to protect me and provide for me and love me and nurture me, and that's what it seems like is happening for everybody else, i.e. the mother to child relationship, feels like quite the opposite for me. And why would that be unless there's something wrong with me? Meaning, right? And so yeah, a couple hours later, shell-shocked, I had my entire life packed, or I think she had already put all my stuff in a suitcase, and she drove me to military school, which is 4-ish hours away, I would assume. Mm-hmm. Dropped me off, and I didn't see anybody I knew for a couple months.
Yeah.
And, you know, I was deposited in an environment that was extremely disciplinarian, extremely different than public school. It was, like I said before, an unexpected shift and change.
Can I jump in?
Yeah.
Shoot. It's 4. Should we just tell Kaizen we need like 20 minutes or something?
Okay, sure. Yeah.
I'm sorry to do the logistical thing.
When I'm on the brink of tears.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing.
Mm-hmm. Cool. I texted him.
Okay, so tell me how you felt because of that experience. Like,
Yeah.
where were you
Mentally
in
and emotionally.
feelings and
Yeah.
emotions?
Abandoned, helpless, hopeless, and with the building belief that I deserve to be.
Mm. Was there any event or interpretation that picked you back up, like in a longer timeline?
Leaving my mother's house a couple of years later.
Mm.
Like, I was in military school for the rest of 7th grade and then all of 8th grade. And then I came back to public school for high school. And then I left Maryland at the end of high school. So I would say that
Who'd you go to, or who did you move to?
South Carolina,
To be with who?
to go to school, to go to college.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can you tell me what either the event or your relationship with your mom, what did that used to mean, and did you change its meaning now? Does it mean something new today?
Mm-hmm. Thank you for a good question. What it meant at the time is that I am...
Was?
At the time is what it meant. At the time, it meant that Imari is like... I don't say this facetiously because I know that I had this thought and I actually believe it. That Imari is the spawn of Satan. And he like does not deserve to exist. There's no reason he should exist. Yeah, that's what I believed at the time. And now, having created a quite nice life for myself, the belief is like, man, I've created a really good fucking story, and I've lived a really good fucking story, and I really didn't deserve any of that. But I am, and I will continue to make it worth what I had to go through. I.e., I will make this a very good... I will turn this into a good story, right? Like the hero doesn't live the hero's journey until the hero decides, I'm going to go get the princess, right? Otherwise, he's just the guy who got Peach stolen from him. But he's like, no, I'm gonna go kick Bowser's ass. And when he makes that decision, now all of a sudden, oh, this is a good story.
Mm.
Yeah. So, I would rather not believe that I am the spawn of Satan.
Yeah, thanks for going to those places. I appreciate you sharing. Do you feel that? I mean, you did like a character change. Did you change your character over the course of like several years? Like, what was that change from character X to character Y?
Yeah, I think the only thing that got me through that time was a belief that I am not the character, I'm not the hero of the story yet, but I can be. And that transitioned into the belief that I will be. And now it's like I am.
Cool.
Yeah.
Let's see. I keep saying
Meaning making is the theme of this episode. I think meaning making is just storytelling, right? Is like, what is the story that you tell yourself? It's like, she broke up with me. That is the event. I'm going to make the meaning. I'm going to tell the story that I can't trust red-haired, freckled women because red-haired, freckled women are fucking the devil's whatever, right?
Mm-hmm.
Great. Shitty story, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or you can be like, wow, got broken up and cheated on by this red-haired, freckled girl, and like, I'm going to make this fucking country album so fucking good. I'm going to be on the fucking cover of Newsweek as the best fucking country singer in the world. And then she'll be like, damn, I really messed up. He was really cool. That seems like a very specific story, but I just pulled that out of my ass.
Shit. No, I'm all over the place. But
How you feeling?
just a little dazed and confused.
Great. Not
because,
touched, not moved, dazed and confused.
Like, I want to stop looking at the computer, but something inside of me keeps me looking at it. I'm gonna shut it though.
Okay.
But I had an idea for a question, and then like more things come, and then I forget.
Of course, it's the human experience.
Yeah, the question had to do with an event happens and we tell ourselves a story about
Correct.
the event.
Yes.
I think that I want to challenge that, but I agree with it. But
Okay.
I think that there's more to it.
Yeah. Good.
Because maybe you agree too, but there's a story that's like verbal in your thought process, like it is thinking. But there's also just like reactions that are either completely absent of like verbal thoughts, and it's just like visceral reaction,
Like gut instinct kind of thing. Yeah.
Yeah. Or what's happening is like half of a thought or a really fast thought happens that makes the gut reaction, and it was so fast that you didn't see it
You
happen.
didn't register it. Yeah.
So something more is happening, right?
Yeah. I think you're getting into the very fun territory of like, what is a belief, right? Meaning, story, belief, all those words are, it's like a little word pie. I think very closely related. Yeah. And if I already have a belief.
Like word challah bread?
Yeah. If I already have a belief that I can't trust red-haired, freckled women, then when the red-haired, freckled woman at Whole Foods tells me that there's no discount on this thing, it's like, oh, I knew it, these fucking bitches. Right? It just reaffirms this thing that I already have. It's evidence on top of a belief. So the question is, what are the beliefs that I have at the bottom of my psyche? What are the beliefs that I have that are running my experience? Because all I'm going to do once those beliefs that are installed, all I'm going to do is look for proof. You wouldn't even notice the red-haired, freckled chick if you didn't already have this idea that that's something important and that's something worth looking at, right? So just be very aware and very curious about what are the beliefs that are running my show right now.
Yeah.
Like, who did I don't know, there's somebody I was talking to, and they were like having a project that they want to do, and they're like, oh, but like, I can't do that because I'm not good enough to do that. It's like, let's talk about that. Why do you think you're not good at enough?
Not good enough to do that.
Yeah.
This is a tangent into psychology that neither of us are qualified to talk about. But
do not underestimate my ability to fabricate bullshit.
Have you ever thought about how stories and beliefs are pretty much dependent on like language and like
that's so fun. God damn,
like language.
I love this guy so much. Fuck, man, you're so great.
Like language and like being able to have words and like structured sentences that either are out there in sound waves or in your head.
Yeah.
There is a place in theory in which like language becomes feeling. There is a place in which like this thing that arbitrarily doesn't mean anything makes like your nervous system like feel sick.
Yeah.
Like
yeah.
where is the place
so
in
cool.
which
there's a moment where it goes from like
scientifically
it's just a
changes.
word to my shoulder hurts.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And
Yeah.
or just thought to pain.
Mm-hmm.
Have you ever thought about that?
A lot. Quite fucking hefty amount. I think language, I don't understand how everybody's not. Why don't we always talk about the fact that we use words? Like, isn't that so cool? Like,
Yeah.
I have things that are happening here.
It's absurd.
This is so absurd. Like, this is wild. I'm making my vocal cords move and vibrate sound so that I can turn this thing and this thought and this emotion into a fucking syllable, a consonant, a combination of words that I hope hits your ear at the right frequency that will interpret in a way that will make you understand what I care about and what I'm thinking. And so I will create some sort of connection and some sort of shared reality between the two of us. And all I need to do is just reverberate the fucking vocal cords. Like, that's so cool. What?
Yeah.
This is absurd. But yeah, sorry to
It'd
go on
be
a tangent.
magic to someone who doesn't have language.
Yeah, it would. It'd be telepathy in a way. Why is that such a hard word to say?
Not exactly. But
I think it would be to them. It would look.
Yeah,
like
it would look
telepathy.
like magic.
Yeah,
Like it'd be like witchcraft or some shit.
yeah.
So
It
someone has
spells.
to-
It spells. I'm casting words out of my mouth, and if I do them in a certain way, you will feel something in your body. Like if I fucking said very loud right now, I fucking hate you, Chris. Like your body will have a reaction, which means I just casted a spell
Yeah.
on your body.
But I guess I didn't have a point or a direction to like
It's just
go
something
with
cool
these
to think
questions. They
about.
were just questions that I am interested in.
Yes, which is why you should be hosting this show.
Yeah. I mean, sure. I am. I find myself here.
It's happening in this moment.
How do you close a podcast?
You asked that question. How do you close a podcast?
No, but how do I taper off strategically into a close? That's what the question I
Maybe
wanted
it's
to
not
ask.
even a taper off. Maybe it's like this is the beginning.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We touched on really cool stuff. I think I could clean up my act a little bit, get a little bit better, a little tighter here and there. But I hope you had fun. Did you have fun?
I had a great time. This is like the best conversation I've had in a while.
Cool. I want to do it more.
Cool.
We're going to do some more episodes, and I hope people continue to watch. We could do something great with this, I hope, and shoot.
I hope. I believe. I will.
Yeah, let's do it. Let's make it happen.
Yeah.
I think that we have to structure a lot of weird noises out of these primate mouths and get some people to hear it, and
That's absurd.
hopefully enough is received that people like it.
Yeah. Yeah, man. This to me is the height of the human experience. Is two things: reflecting on the human experience, which is absurd, and two, creating something new for the human experience. I think that we did both of those things today, and I appreciate your care that was behind your questions and your willingness to make space for the answer.
Yeah, cool. Thanks, Mari. I
Thanks.
really appreciate you as a friend, and thanks everyone for watching. Have a good life, day, week,
Have a good life.
spectrum of the time. See you later.
Bye.